So we're on our little episode 2, and we kind of wanted to share how we came up with our boys' names. So yeah, do you want to take it out?
Oh, you got it.
Okay.
Better than I have.
So I kind of touched lightly on, in our last episode video, how when we transferred the little boy embryo, we had talked about, we were pretty sure we were going to name our next boy Maxwell if it all worked out, and maybe call him Wells for short. And anyways, it wasn't 100%, but we were pretty sure that's what we were going to name this little boy. And it was right after we did our polyp removal surgery, and we were prepping my body with all the medications for the embryo transfer. I had a really cool spiritual experience. It's very sacred, so I'm not going to go into a lot of detail about it. But I knew we were supposed to name this little boy Enoch. Or as some people say, Enoch from the Bible, Enoch. But we're going to call him Enoch. That's how we pronounce it out here in Utah, at least. So Enoch. And it was never a name I have ever thought of, considered. Like, I was pretty shocked. And I was like, okay, like, I'll name him Enoch. Like, it was such an amazing experience where I was like, for sure. So I went to my husband and I just had told him, I said, hey, this is the experience I had, the spiritual experience. And I feel like we really need to name him Enoch. And your reaction was?
No.
That was not your reaction. No.
Oh, yeah. Honestly, because I had some other names personally in my toolbox I wanted to use. But I agreed as well. I really felt like it was a special name. It's me. And then also, I don't know. It just felt right.
Yeah. So, yeah, and I remember him saying, like, okay, well, that wasn't a name I thought of, but your experience is really cool. And
yeah, I'm not going to argue against your spiritual experience.
Yeah. And I was like, are you sure? Like, I want to make sure, this is your son too. So I want to make sure you're okay with that. And anyways, we both agreed. So yes, from that,
dear.
Huh?
Yes, dear.
Whatever. So then we we for sure were like, okay, well, if this works out, this little boy is going to be named Enoch, which I really felt like there was a good chance of it working out because of that experience I had. So anyways, so then we jump forward, like we told you, we found out the egg split, and it was a couple days before I got really sick. I had this impression come to me, you need to think of another name. And I was so confused. I don't even think I told you about it. Did I? I don't know if I did.
I think you did. But I think you eventually did.
Yeah.
Not right.
But I was so confused because I was like, no, I know that spiritual experience I had. Like, I'm not going to doubt that. So why would I need to think of another name? And so I kind of just like pushed it in the back of my mind. And then I got really sick with the hives. And then we went in and found out our egg split. And when I was laying there, I was like, oh. And then on the drive home, I'm like, that's why I needed to think of another name. So that was kind of crazy. So after, things the dust settled and we were thinking, well, what are we going to name this next baby? We both were like, well, we can't have one have a biblical name and the other one not.
Right.
And with them being identical twins, we're like, we both want them to start with E. And so we kind of were looking at a lot of biblical names for boys that were E, started with E. And we were looking at Elijah and Elias and Enos, what is one in the Book of Mormon, but it kind of sounds like something else.
Yeah, just say that.
We couldn't do that. No.
Yeah.
So anyways, but I kept being drawn to Ezekiel. And Andrew liked it, but he also really liked Elijah, which I liked as well, but not as much. And so as time kind of went on, we talked about it and kind of mulled over and prayed about it. And we kind of felt we needed to do Ezekiel, and we'd call him Zeke for short. Anyways, so we also, that's kind of how that went. We looked up their names in Hebrew, and I knew Enoch, his name meant like trained, disciplined servant. And but in Hebrew, Ezekiel means the strength of God. And so we were just like, wow, these are some really powerful names. Really, really cool. So then a couple weeks went by and I was like, how am I going to know which one was the original? You know, I kept telling I called my dad, who's the OG. I kept telling my dad, I'm like, Dad, which one was supposed to be Enoch? Because after having that experience, it was so powerful. And I'm like, I know one of them was specifically supposed to be Enoch, but which one? And my dad, he was like, don't worry about that. Like when they're born, just lay them in front of you and say a prayer and you'll know which one was supposed to be which. And so I kind of talked to Andrew about that. He's like, that sounds like a good plan. So we kind of just like pushed it in the back of our mind and we're like, we'll figure it out later. Right now it's baby A and baby B. And a little fun fact, we didn't really know this, but I was always like, how do they decide which one's A and B? Baby A is always the baby that's closest to your cervix. So the baby that would come out first is always baby A in any twin pregnancy. And baby B is obviously the second baby that would come out.
Do you think the egg that's closest to the cervix or the baby that's closest to the cervix was the first one? Or
well, we asked that question and
no one knows, right?
Yeah, they said, well, you never know which one was the original one. Like which one was the one that it split from. You just don't know. Like we'll never know. So
topic.
Yeah, that's another topic for another day. Chime in if you have opinions about that. But anyways, so we were at our 14-week appointment. Like I said, we had shoved it in the back of our minds. I wasn't even thinking about it. I think most of our ultrasounds up to that point were just like worrying if like they were the same size and if things looked normal because my sister knew pretty early on that there were fluid differences and all of that. So we were just hoping that, if things were looking how they should. And I was laying there and it was like I said, I wasn't even thinking about it. We were just watching the babies on the ultrasound and it was like whoosh, like the spirit just came over me and it was like, baby A is Enoch. And I was like, whoa. I didn't say anything to my husband in the moment, but as we were waiting to see the doctor, I turned to him and I'm like, Andrew, I just know baby A is Enoch. And then you said, he had the same prompting. I was like, what? I was like, really? He's like, yeah. He goes, I wasn't even thinking about it either. And I just had the prompting that baby A is Enoch. So we were like, okay, baby A is Enoch. So B is Ezekiel. So like I said, this was at 14 weeks. We knew their names. And it's crazy as our story went on to see how their names truly were a part of our experience of what we found out with them. So, everything was going great. We started going to MFM. MFM is maternal fetal medicine. They're like more high-risk doctors that you see at the hospital with high-risk pregnancies. So we started seeing them at 16 weeks. And anyways, and we were seeing them I don't know if it was every week or every 2 weeks. And then at our 20.5-week appointment, that's when everything hit the fan. So yeah, we'll go into that. But what was amazing to see is like how their names were so specific for what happened. As you guys know, Enoch the prophet was smaller stature. It kind of reminds me of like Moses, how Aaron was like his brother who spoke for him, because Moses was kind of not a strong speaker, not someone you would typically pick as a prophet. But they both became these mighty prophets. And anyways, so then we found out our SIUGR twin was Enoch, and he was severely growth restricted. We found out at that 20.5-week appointment that whole situation. And so, and then Ezekiel, his brother, was completely fine the whole pregnancy. And so it was just really cool to see that Ezekiel means the strength of God. And with Enoch, his name means dedicated, trained, disciplined servant. And it was just amazing to see how all this played out and how their names totally fit the experience we went through with this pregnancy and still are going through now. So anyways, we get asked a lot how we came up with their names, and we just wanted to share how that all came to be.
we'll be diving into a little bit more about how their names are actually living up to their. It's just,
That's a better way of saying it.
They're definitely some fighters. To quote pretty much every nurse and doctor that's spoken to us, said, "Man, you guys got some fighters." It's been really great. So this is episode 2. It's just giving some overview of our little boys' names, and be on the lookout for our next episode. And we'll see you guys next time. Bye.
See ya.